You are welcome to my YouTube channel. If you enjoy my stories, kindly subscribe and share this video with your friends and family so they can enjoy it too. Thank you. Enjoy your new story.
My name is Alina. I am 28 years old, and I am a baker by profession. I worked at my late father's small roadside bakery, a faded yellow shop that smelled of warm bread and burnt sugar every morning. It wasn't much, but it was all I had left of him. After his death, I promised myself I would keep it running, no matter how hard things got. Every morning, I'd wake before sunrise, knead dough until my hands ached, and watch the world slowly wake with the smell of fresh loaves. My mother rarely visited. She said the bakery was too small for dreams. My brother, Garrick, only came around when he needed money, which was often. One evening, while closing up, I received a call from the hospital. My rent was due, the bakery oven was failing, and now I learned that Mama's blood pressure had spiked. I rushed there, only to find Garrick arguing with a nurse over unpaid bills. He looked at me with that usual smirk. "Alina will handle it," he said, like I was some endless purse. I begged Mama later that night, tears burning my eyes. "Please, I need part of the bakery's savings to fix the oven. If I lose it, everything Father built will be gone." She looked away. "Your brother needs help. Family comes first." My throat went dry. "Am I not family too?" She didn't answer, only pressed an envelope into Garrick's hands. That was the night I realized love in our house came with conditions. I walked back to the bakery alone. The scent of unsold bread filled the air, heavy and bitter. I locked the door, whispered, "It's okay, Papa," and promised myself I wouldn't let this break me. The next few days passed in silence. Garrick disappeared again, leaving behind his laughter and unpaid debts. Mama pretended nothing had happened. I tried to focus on work. Every loaf I baked carried a piece of my anger, my hope, and my exhaustion. I sold bread to school kids, drivers, and tired mothers returning from the market. Some days, I gave away bread to children who had no money. It made the pain softer. One afternoon, as the sun melted into gold, an old woman walked in. Her hair was silver and neat, her wrapper faded but clean. She held a walking stick that tapped softly on the floor. "You're Alina," she said with a smile that seemed to look straight through me. "Your bread smells like kindness." I laughed nervously. "It's just flour and time, Ma." She nodded slowly. "Time, yes. But there's something else you add. Keep it that way." Before I could ask her name, she placed a coin on the counter, an old silver one, the kind no longer used. "For good fortune," she said, then left before I could give her change. That night, I found a folded note under the bread tray. My name was written on it in tiny handwriting. It read, "The heart that gives even when empty will never stay empty for long." I froze, staring at the door. The note smelled faintly of lavender, the same scent that the old woman that came to the bakery wore. Was it a message? A warning? Or just coincidence? Either way, something about that woman felt different. I didn't know then that her visits would change everything I believed about family, loss, and forgiveness. Few weeks later, the old woman returned, always at odd hours, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes just before closing time. She never said much, only asked strange questions. "Do you believe people can love and still hurt you? Would you forgive if no one said sorry?" I never knew how to answer. But each time she spoke, her eyes seemed to soften, like she was searching for something in me. One day, she brought a small cloth pouch. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like a heart. My initials, Tio, were engraved at the back. My breath caught. "Where did you get this?" She smiled faintly. "It found its way to me. Maybe it's finding its way back." Before I could ask more questions, she had walked out, leaving behind the scent of lavender and questions that refused to rest. Later that evening, I told Mama about her. She frowned. "You talk too much to strangers. Maybe she's after your money." "What money?" I laughed bitterly. Mama sighed. "You and that bakery are all heart and no sense." Her words hurt more than I wanted to admit. Still, I tucked the pendant into my apron pocket and kept baking. Somehow, the silver charm gave me a quiet kind of strength. But the very next morning, I arrived at the bakery to find the cash box gone. Every last dollar. The door hadn't been forced. Someone had used the spare key. And just like that, everything fell apart again. Panic clawed at my chest. I searched every corner of the bakery, every drawer, every bag. Nothing. My hands trembled as I locked the door and ran home. Mama was in the kitchen, humming softly. Garrick sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Someone stole the bakery money, I blurted. Everything's gone. Garrick didn't even look up. That's bad, but you shouldn't keep cash there. I turned to Mama. Did you see anyone near the shop yesterday? She hesitated. No. Maybe you misplaced it. Misplaced it? All of it. I wanted to scream, but something in her tone stopped me. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silver pendant rested on my bedside table, catching the dim light. Had the old woman tricked me? Was she part of it? The next morning, I went searching for her. At the roadside stalls, the bus stop, even the nearby church. No one had seen her. It was like she'd vanished. Then 2 days later, I found a note slipped under the bakery door. Loss is only the beginning. Don't stop baking. No name. Just the faint smell of lavender. I sank to the floor, tears burning my face. Was this some cruel game? Still, I wiped my eyes, tied my apron, and started baking again. Because somehow deep down, I felt this wasn't the end. It was the start of something I couldn't yet see. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived, sealed in thick cream paper with a wax stamp shaped like a dove. The handwriting was neat, old-fashioned. It read, Miss Alina, you are invited to the Belmont estate this Saturday to collect something left in your name. Bring only yourself, the custodian. I read it 3 times. I didn't know any Belmont estate. I thought it was a prank, until I noticed the faint lavender scent on the envelope. Mama laughed when I showed her. You, an estate? Maybe that old woman really bewitched you. Even Garrick snorted. Be careful, or you'll end up in a ritual story. I ignored them. Something inside me whispered, go. Saturday came. I wore my cleanest dress, tucked the pendant under my collar, and took the first bus out of town. The road wound through fields and quiet hills. For the first time in months, I felt a strange peace, mixed with fear. At the gate of the Belmont estate stood a young man in a gray suit. He checked my letter, then smiled politely. Miss Alina, he said, opening the gate. We've been expecting you. My heart pounded. Expecting me? As I stepped through the gate, the world behind me seemed to fade, and I had no idea that what awaited inside would rewrite everything I thought I knew about my father, my family, and myself. The Belmont estate was nothing like I had imagined. It stood on a quiet hill surrounded by tall mango trees and trimmed gardens that smelled faintly of rain and soap. The gate shut behind me with a slow creak, and my heart raced faster. A man in his 50s, wearing a dark brown coat, greeted me at the door. Welcome, Miss Alina. My name is Mr. Allen. I was instructed to escort you. By who? I asked. He smiled. You'll see soon enough. Inside, the air was cool and filled with the soft ticking of a clock somewhere in the hall. Portraits lined the walls, most of them old, with names carved beneath. But one portrait made me stop. It was my father, younger, in a suit I had never seen before, standing beside a woman, the same silver-haired lady from the bakery. I froze. That's my father. And her. Mr. Allen nodded. Yes, they were business partners many years ago. He trusted her more than most. My head spun. Why hadn't Mama ever mentioned this? Before I could ask, Allen handed me an envelope. She left instructions for you. We'll begin tomorrow morning. As I sat in the guest room that night, I turned the pendant over in my hands. How could this woman, a stranger, know my father so well? Something deep inside told me the next morning would bring answers, and questions I might not want to face. The next morning, I was led to a bright room filled with the smell of flour, butter, and vanilla. It looked like a bakery, only grander, with marble counters and shiny ovens. This was your father's dream, Allen said softly. A bakery school for women who had nowhere else to go. My throat tightened. I had never heard of it. He handed me a small notebook with my father's handwriting. On the first page were words that stopped me cold. If Alina ever finds this place, it means she chose kindness over resentment. That's when she'll be ready. My eyes blurred with tears. I traced his name at the bottom. Allen watched me quietly. The woman you met, her name was Mrs. Bell. She and your father built this estate together. Before she passed, she left something for you to finish. I swallowed hard. She's gone. He nodded. 2 weeks ago. My heart dropped. All those visits, her questions, her smile, they had been her way of saying goodbye. On the counter sat a covered tray. Allen lifted the cloth. Inside was a loaf of bread, golden and perfect, with a small key baked into the crust. She said you'd know what to do with it. I didn't. Not yet. But something told me that key wasn't just metal. It was the start of the truth she'd wanted me to find. That night, I stayed up reading the notebook. Page after page held recipes, small notes, and bits of my father's dreams. But halfway through, I found something different, a letter written to Mama. It read, "If anything happens to me, tell Alina about Belmont. Tell her that Mrs. Bell holds the other half of our promise." But Mama never told me. She had hidden it all. I felt my chest tighten with anger and confusion. Why would she keep this from me? The next morning, I asked Alan about the key. He smiled faintly. "You should check the old garden shed." I did. The lock clicked open, and inside I found an old trunk filled with photographs, letters, and one dusty brown envelope addressed to me. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a short message from Mrs. Bell. "Kindness is a seed your father planted. You've kept it alive. Now it's your turn to make it grow." Beneath the note was a folded deed, transferring ownership of the bakery and this estate to my name. I covered my mouth, trembling. She had left everything to me. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or laugh. But one thing was clear. The woman everyone thought was a stranger had seen me more clearly than my own mother ever had. The next few days were a blur. I explored the estate, each corner whispering pieces of my father's hidden life. There were training rooms, storage halls, and even an unfinished wing labeled Hope Center. I began baking again in the large kitchen, using my father's recipes. It felt strange but peaceful, like he was guiding my hands through every fold of dough. One evening, as I cleaned the counter, Alan approached me with another letter. "This one came yesterday," he said. "Addressed to you from your town." I tore it open. The handwriting was familiar, Mama's. "Alina, Garrick is in trouble again. He owes dangerous people money. I don't know what to do. Please come home. You're still his sister." I sat there frozen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But another part, the part that still loved her despite everything, couldn't. That night, I walked the estate gardens, wrestling with my thoughts. Mrs. Bell's words echoed in my head. "Kindness is a seed." I sighed deeply. Maybe this was the real test, not the baking, not the letters, but the choice to forgive when forgiveness made no sense. The next morning, I packed my bag. It was time to go home, even if I didn't know what waited for me there. When I arrived home, everything looked smaller. The street, the bakery, even the house. Mama was sitting outside, her face pale and tired. She looked up, tears filling her eyes. "Alina." I didn't speak at first. I just looked at her, the woman who had once chosen my brother over me. "Where's Garrick?" I asked quietly. "In trouble," she whispered. "He borrowed money from some men. They came here yesterday, shouting. I told them we'd pay soon." "We?" I repeated. She nodded weakly. "You're the only one who can help." I wanted to walk away. Every wound she caused came rushing back. The nights I cried alone, the empty promises. But then I saw fear in her eyes, the same fear I once saw in my father's when bills piled high. "I'll help," I said finally, "but not with money." Her brow furrowed. "Then how?" "By showing him what he threw away." She didn't understand yet, but I did. I wasn't going to save Garrick with cash. I was going to rebuild what he had helped destroy, and make him face the difference between taking and giving. As I turned toward the bakery, the morning sun broke through the clouds, and for the first time, I felt like I was walking in my father's light again. The bakery was colder than I remembered. Dust covered the counters, and the smell of yeast had long faded. I stood there for a while, remembering the mornings when Papa would whistle while kneading dough and Mama would smile from the doorway. Those days felt like a dream. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I cleaned, scrubbed, and patched broken shelves. By sunset, I had only managed to clear one corner, but it felt like a start. That night, I lit a candle and placed the silver pendant beside it. The flame flickered, reflecting off its surface. Then I opened Mrs. Bell's last letter again. "When the time comes, rebuild with the hands that hurt you. That is how wounds become bridges." I sighed. Easy words on paper. Harder in real life. The next morning, Mama arrived with a basket of yam and a nervous smile. "I thought you might need help." I hesitated, then nodded. "There's a broom in the corner." We worked in silence. She avoided my eyes, and I avoided her questions. But when she saw Papa's old apron hanging by the window, her hands trembled. "I should have told you about Belmont," she said finally. "I was afraid. Your father trusted too easily. I didn't want you chasing ghosts." "Ghosts?" I said softly. "He was building a future. You just couldn't see it." She looked down. I see it now. Her voice cracked. For the first time in years, I saw regret in her eyes, real heavy regret. I didn't say anything. I just handed her a loaf of bread dough. Then helped me finish what he started. The next few weeks were a blur of work and exhaustion. Mama came every morning, sometimes bringing vegetables, sometimes just her presence. Slowly, we began to find a rhythm again, like music we had both forgotten. Then one afternoon, Garrick stumbled into the bakery. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked smaller somehow, like life had finally caught. Up with him. "Alina," he said quietly, "I need help." I didn't look up. "You always do." "I mean it this time," he whispered. "I messed up. Those men want their money. Mama could get hurt." Something inside me softened, though I fought it. "You brought this on yourself." "I know," he said, voice shaking. "But please, I just need a chance." I studied him for a moment, then said, "Come back tomorrow. I'll tell you what you can do." When he left, Mama turned to me, worried. "You're not giving him money, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm giving him a job." Her eyes widened. "You'll trust him here?" I shrugged. If Mrs. Bell could trust me with her estate after everything I lost, maybe I can try too. That night, I wrote in my father's notebook. Maybe forgiveness is not forgetting what they did. It's giving them a place to change. Garrick showed up early the next morning, an unusual sight. I handed him a broom. "Start there," I said, pointing at the back room. He sighed but obeyed. For hours, he swept, washed, and carried flour sacks. Sweat soaked through his shirt, but he didn't complain. By afternoon, the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air again. Customers began returning, surprised to see the bakery open. Some even hugged me. An older woman smiled. "Your bread always tasted like love, my dear. We missed that." Her words made my throat tighten. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. As evening came, Garrick sat outside, breathing heavily. "You work too hard," he said. I smiled faintly. "So should you." He laughed weakly. "Fair." Then, after a pause, he added, "You didn't have to let me back. I wouldn't have if I were you." I looked at him, remembering Mrs. Bell's voice in my head. "The heart that gives when it hurts heals faster." "I'm not doing it for you," I said softly. "I'm doing it for peace." He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. For once, he didn't argue. That night, I saw Mama watching us through the bakery window, a small, hopeful smile on her face. It was fragile, but it was real. A few days later, another envelope arrived at the bakery. No address, just the Dove seal again. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter in Mrs. Bell's handwriting. "You are rebuilding not just walls, but hearts. When the past returns, meet it with grace. The real inheritance is not money, it's legacy." I sat in silence, letting the words sink in. Later that evening, as I was cleaning the counter, Mama placed a faded photograph in front of me. It showed my father standing beside Mrs. Bell, younger, smiling, holding a sign that read Hope Bread Foundation. "He wanted to open schools for women who couldn't afford training," Mama whispered. "But when he died, I panicked. I thought it was too much for us." Tears blurred my eyes. "So you buried his dream?" She nodded slowly. "And I buried you with it. I'm sorry." Her voice cracked again, and for the first time, I reached out and held her hand. "Then let's bring it back together." We stayed like that for a long time, surrounded by the smell of rising dough and soft evening light. Outside, Garrick was painting the bakery's wooden sign with new letters: Alina's Bakery, Hope Bread Center. The past wasn't gone. It was being rewritten. By the end of the month, the bakery had become more than a shop. It was alive. Young girls came after school to learn how to bake. Neighbors donated ingredients. Even the taxi drivers offered to help deliver loaves. Every day, Mama taught the girls how to package bread neatly, while Garrick handled deliveries. Watching them work side by side almost felt unreal. Then one evening, while counting the day's sales, I heard Mama's soft voice behind me. "Your father would be proud." I smiled, blinking back tears. Maybe Mrs. Bell too. Mama looked thoughtful. "You talk about her like she's still here." "She is," I said quietly, touching the silver pendant. "In a way." Suddenly, the bell above the door rang. A young woman in a black suit walked in, holding a folder. "Are you Miss Alina?" "Yes," I replied. She handed me the folder. "Mrs. Bell instructed me to deliver this after 1 month of your return. Congratulations, you've completed the first stage." "First stage?" I repeated, confused. She smiled. "Her instructions are inside." And she said, You'll know when you're ready for the second." As she walked away, I stared at the sealed folder. My pulse quickened. What else had Mrs. Bell planned? Whatever it was, I knew it would change everything again. I sat at the counter long after the young woman had left, staring at the sealed folder. The air in the bakery felt heavier than usual, like the walls themselves were waiting for me to open it. Finally, I broke the seal. Inside was a thick stack of papers, and another letter from Mrs. Bell. "Alina, the second stage of your inheritance is not wealth. It is truth. Before you can own what was built for you, you must know who built it beside your father, and who tried to destroy it." My hands trembled as I turned the page. Attached was a document titled Partnership Agreement. Hope Bread Foundation, registered 2007. 3 signatures appeared at the bottom. My father's, Mrs. Bell's, and Garrick's. My breath caught. It didn't make sense. Garrick would have been barely 16 at the time. Why was his name there? At the bottom of the folder was a small key taped to another note. "The answers lie in the old storehouse behind the bakery." I felt my chest tighten. That storehouse had been locked for years. Papa's private space no one dared enter. That night, after everyone slept, I took a lantern and the key. The lock creaked open, releasing a wave of stale air and memories. Inside were wooden crates, old ledgers, and one large trunk. I lifted its lid and found a pile of letters, receipts, and photos. On top lay a sealed envelope labeled, "For Alina, when she's ready." I swallowed hard and opened it. The first line read, "If you are reading this, my child, then the truth can no longer stay buried." I sat on the floor, trembling as I read my father's handwriting. "Your brother was not always lost, Alina. He was part of my dream once. He helped me deliver bread across Belmont. But when I began working with Mrs. Bell, people whispered that we were hiding money. They used him to reach me. He took a deal that almost destroyed everything." I felt my throat tighten. My brother? Involved in destroying Papa's dream? The letter continued. "When the foundation account was frozen, I took the blame to protect your mother and brother. Mrs. Bell sold her land to clear our debts. She said the dream was worth more than gold. If she ever finds you again, trust her and forgive him." My eyes blurred with tears. The next morning, I called Garrick to the storehouse. "Did you know about this?" I asked, handing him the document. He stared at it for a long time, then looked away. I didn't understand back then. "A man came to me, said Papa and that woman were stealing church funds. He offered me money to bring him some papers." I covered my mouth in shock. "You gave them Papa's records?" He nodded slowly. "I thought I was saving the family. Instead, I ruined us." Mama, who had quietly followed us in, let out a sob. "So that's why your father stopped trusting everyone." Garrick broke down. "I've been trying to forget, but it never leaves me." I closed the trunk and whispered, "Then stop running. Help me rebuild what you helped destroy." He looked up, eyes full of shame and relief. "I will." The next few days were heavy with silence and work. I spent every free hour sorting Papa's letters and Mrs. Bell's old plans. They had dreamed of building a training center that offered scholarships for women in small villages. One afternoon, I found another note, a short one in Mrs. Bell's elegant handwriting. "Legacy is not about who failed you, but who you rise for." Those words hit deep. I decided to restart the Hope Bread Foundation officially. With Mama and Garrick beside me, we began filing papers, contacting community leaders, and gathering volunteers. But not everyone was happy. A man named Mr. Pierce, who claimed to be the current caretaker of Belmont's charity lands, arrived one morning. "You're trespassing," he said coldly. "This property belongs to the state now." I showed him the partnership papers Mrs. Bell left me. His smile faded. "Where did you get these?" "From the rightful founder's daughter," I said firmly. He narrowed his eyes. "Be careful, Miss Alina. Some truths are better left buried." After he left, Mama whispered, "He's the same man who came to our house years ago, right before your father died." My heart pounded. Then he's the one who turned Garrick against Papa. The past wasn't done with us yet, and this time I wouldn't run. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of the rain on the tin roof reminded me of the night Papa died. I sat at the table with his old notebook, flipping through his scribbles. At the back, hidden between 2 pages, was a folded newspaper clipping. "Local charity under investigation for fraud." The photo showed Papa being led away by police, eyes filled with hurt, not guilt. My stomach twisted. The article was written by someone named Pierce Dalton. So it was him all along. The next morning, I met with Mrs. Bell's lawyer. the same woman who had delivered the folder. She frowned when I mentioned his name. Pierce? He tried to buy Mrs. Bell's estate after her stroke. She refused, said it was meant for someone else. Now I see why. She handed me another envelope. This is the final condition in Mrs. Bell's will. Once you reopen the foundation, this deed, and the remaining funds, will officially transfer to your name. I gasped. You mean? She smiled gently. You're about to finish what your father started. When she left, I clutched the envelope against my chest. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a calling. But I knew Pierce wouldn't give up quietly. The opening day of Hope Bread Center was bright and warm. Children ran through the courtyard, volunteers arranged chairs, and the scent of fresh bread filled the air. Mama wore Papa's old apron, her eyes shining with pride. Garrick stood by the gate, greeting guests. It almost felt perfect, until a black car pulled up. Pierce stepped out, holding a file. You think this place will last? You're standing on land that belongs to me now. I faced him calmly. No, Mr. Pierce. It belongs to the foundation, to the people. He laughed bitterly. You have no proof. I smiled faintly. Actually, I do. I handed him the newly registered deed, signed, sealed, and stamped with the estate lawyer's mark. Mrs. Bell left everything to the Hope Bread Foundation, and I'm its new trustee. For a moment, his expression faltered. Then he turned and stormed away without another word. As the choir began to sing, I looked up at the sky. Papa, I whispered, we did it. Mama wrapped her arm around me. No, you did it. But I shook my head, smiling. We all did. Even the ones who failed. They became part of the story. The wind carried the smell of baking bread through the courtyard, soft and warm, like a blessing. And as I stood there, I realized something. The true inheritance wasn't what Mrs. Bell gave me. It was what she awakened inside me. The Hope Bread Foundation had barely begun when trouble returned. One evening, a letter arrived from the local council. It claimed our building permit was revoked due to unverified ownership documents. At the bottom was a signature I recognized, Pierce Dalton. Mama's face turned pale. He's not done with us. I felt anger rise, but I remembered Mrs. Bell's words. Legacy is not about who failed you, but who you rise for. Instead of panicking, I called an emergency meeting with our volunteers. We won't stop. We'll bake through the storm, I said. That night, we worked by lantern light, preparing hundreds of loaves for the community. The smell of bread filled every street in Belmont. People began lining up even before dawn. When the news spread that Pierce was trying to shut us down, more people showed up. Mothers, students, farmers, all saying the same thing. This bakery belongs to all of us. By morning, the story had reached the radio. A reporter arrived with a camera crew. She asked me, "Why keep going when you're under threat?" I looked into the lens and said, "Because hope doesn't need permission." The next day, a government official arrived unexpectedly, not to close us, but to investigate Pierce. Mama squeezed my hand. Maybe at last the truth is coming out. I smiled softly. It always does, just not on our schedule. A week later, I was summoned to the city council office. I wore my best dress, the same one I'd worn at the bakery's first reopening. Inside, I saw Pierce already seated, frowning. The council chairman looked from him to me. "Miss Alina, we've reviewed your documents and Mrs. Bell's estate records. Everything checks out. Mr. Pierce, however," he paused, flipping a page, "has been found guilty of forging signatures to acquire abandoned charity land." Pierce's eyes widened. "That's a lie." The chairman slammed the folder shut. "We have Mrs. Bell's original will and your fake copy. You will face legal charges." He turned to me. "The Hope Bread Foundation is officially recognized. Congratulations." The room went silent except for my heartbeat. I wanted to cry, but instead I whispered, "Thank you." As I walked out, Pierce called after me, his voice low. "This isn't over." I turned back. "Maybe not for you, but for me it finally is." Outside, the sky broke open with rain. I tilted my head up and let it fall on my face. It didn't feel like rain. It felt like cleansing. When I reached home, Mama and Garrick were waiting by the door. Garrick grinned through tears. "So we won." I hugged them both tightly. "No, Garrick. We didn't just win, we were freed." The weeks that followed felt like sunrise after a long storm. The bakery buzzed with laughter again. Children helped knead dough. Women from nearby towns came for free training sessions. One afternoon, while organizing the files, I found a small box I hadn't noticed before. Inside was Mrs. Bell's silver pendant, the one she'd given me months ago, and a handwritten note. Your father once said love without forgiveness is just pride dressed in pain. When the ones who hurt you come home, don't close the door. That's where true legacy begins. I didn't understand it fully, until that evening. Garrick came into the bakery, his face pale. Mama's been coughing badly, he said. The doctor says she needs rest and constant care. I hurried home. Mama was lying on the couch, weak but smiling faintly. I've been thinking, she whispered, about all the times I chose wrong, about how I said family comes first, but forgot you were family too. My throat tightened. Don't, Mama. What's done is done. She held my hand, tears spilling. You became what I should have been, kind even when hurt. I'm proud of you, Alina. In that moment, I felt something inside me loosen, years of pain melting away. For the first time, when she said family comes first, I finally believed her. The Hope Bread Foundation grew faster than I imagined. Newspapers called it a miracle born from forgiveness. We hosted our first graduation ceremony for young women who'd completed the baking program. Each one received a small pendant, a replica of Mrs. Bell's silver charm, engraved with the words, "Rise with kindness." As the crowd clapped and the music played, I looked toward the framed photos hanging on the wall. Papa, Mrs. Bell, and even Garrick, who now ran a youth outreach branch in the next town. After the ceremony, Garrick approached me quietly. Alina, I have something to confess. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket. This is the last money I got from Pierce all those years ago. I kept it hidden because I didn't know how to face it, but I want to donate it to the foundation, to make peace. I stared at him, speechless. He smiled nervously. I can't undo what I did, but I can help others not make the same mistake. I hugged him tightly. Then let's make that your legacy. Later that night, I stood alone in the bakery, looking at the glowing ovens. The smell of warm bread filled the air. The same smell that once meant survival now meant rebirth. I whispered to the empty room. Thank you, Papa. Thank you, Mrs. Bell. And maybe, just maybe, I felt them there, smiling back. Months later, I sat on the porch of the foundation as the sun sank behind the hills. The courtyard was full of laughter. Women selling bread, children running with crumbs on their faces, music floating through the evening air. Mama sat beside me, wrapped in a shawl. Her health had improved, and she looked peaceful. Do you ever think about how far we've come? She asked softly. I smiled. Every day. I used to think forgiveness was weakness. But it's the strongest thing I've ever done. She nodded. You taught me that. A gentle breeze blew, carrying the smell of baked bread and blooming flowers. I held the silver pendant around my neck and whispered, family comes first, but not just by blood. By heart. Garrick joined us, handing Mama a loaf of freshly baked bread. Made it myself, he said proudly. She laughed, taking a bite. Your father would be proud. As I looked out at the lively courtyard, the bakery now transformed into a beacon of hope. I felt peace settle deep within me. Life had tested me, broken me, and rebuilt me. Also, I could understand one truth. Kindness doesn't erase pain, but it rewrites the ending. And in that golden light, surrounded by laughter and love, I finally knew what true inheritance meant. Not money, not property, but the power to heal what once was broken. As the first stars appeared, I whispered to myself, thank you for choosing me, even when others didn't. The ovens glowed softly behind me, warm like a promise that hope, once shared, never truly dies. Thank you for listening to my story. Kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel, Randy Revenges, for more inspiring stories. Like and share.